In terms of what we're going to look at is basically how we actually use social media. We will give you some statistics, then we'll also talk about personal brand. Do you all know that you've got a personal brand? Yeah, so it's a relatively recent thing. It takes some people by surprise. But obviously with social media, it has such an impact on social branding. So Facebook, 1.49 billion. YouTube, 1 billion users, 4 billion views per day. Yeah.
So what do you guys got for disadvantages first? If we cover that off, what do you guys think?
Cyberbullying.
Distraction, what was your one down the back?
Cyberbullying.
Cyberbullying, yep.
Yeah, multitasking, not really paying attention to the person that you're with.
Oh, totally, yeah, I hear you, yep.
Overwhelming information.
Yeah, okay, what about benefits then? What are the benefits of social media? What are the bad things, what are the great things?
You can share ideas quickly.
Yep.
And you can keep up with what's happening in the world.
True.
You can really tyranny of distance, you know, friends in UK, throughout the world, you can deal with talk.
Totally.
So we had most of those. So it can reduce privacy. None of you said about the time, I don't think. It can take up a lot of time. The whole personal and professional thing can become really intertwined. Yeah, it can encourage informality, which from a personal branding point of view can be a little bit tricky. And sort of information, you put some information on there and it can be so taken out of context and can be really damaging. So it's things like that we've got to think about. There is that whole emotional connection and it can decrease that, and also communication skills. Then of course you've got the whole bullying. Then of course Facebook is selling your personal information. So then they can target those ads to you. In fact, yeah, it's not just Facebook. A whole lot of people are companies are selling your personal information. Fraud, identity theft, all of that comes into it. But it does allow you to access a community, and if you do have people that you want to keep in contact with, particularly people outside of Auckland, it makes it so much easier. So that is an advantage. So that's the whole social thing. Worldwide connectivity, people with common interests. So we do like to be with people who are like us. So it helps us find our tribe, if you like. So that is a really good thing about it. And then the whole personal brand in searching for a job, so you can be headhunted. Just as LinkedIn as an example, so you can actually find contacts on there for informational interviews. So what was it? It was 380 million roughly on LinkedIn, but just University of Auckland alone, there's 80,165 plus. So that's current students, alumni and staff. So that's a huge network. And you can go onto LinkedIn and you can actually see where they work, what they do, and you can drill down further. So if you want to know about a job, for example, say you're thinking about changing roles and you're not quite sure what people do in that role, you can go onto LinkedIn, you can identify someone from the University of Auckland who maybe studied something similar to you. You can find out what they're doing. You can make a connection with them and ask if you can do an informational interview so you can go and talk to them about their job. Because when you are trying to connect with people, it is good to find something in common. So I know someone, she was a law graduate, so she went through all the law firms, through the partners trying to find just one thing at least in common. So an example she gave me was she found someone who spoke French and she had just been in France. So when she contacted him, she used that as her hook to get in. And coincidentally, that was the firm she got the job with. This person has brainstormed all the different things that they're involved in, interested in. So they've got LinkedIn, they've got a fan page on Facebook, they've got Twitter, they've got a blog, YouTube, iTunes, but they've got all that stuff. So how do they keep track of it, and how on earth do they actually find the time? So ways that you can actually save time is just setting up a schedule. So actually making a date with yourself to regularly do it. Some people talk about just doing it for half an hour a day. Stockpiling content, so you see interesting things come through, so actually just keep them in a folder and then you can sort of like send it through. You can schedule posts to be sent automatically, and also if you have a particular audience in mind that say might be in the United States, you can actually Google what the best time is to tweet or Facebook or whatever it is, and you can figure out, like if it is overseas, what the best time might be. It's quite often when people are going home, so like if they use public transport, they'll be on their phones and doing it that way. Dinner time is not a great time, but you can research that information even. You can set up a Google alert for specified topics. How many of you do have a Google alert? Yeah. So you just go onto Google. If you Google Alert, it'll come up. And it'll actually, if you've got a Google account, it'll sort of pop up straight away with your Gmail and your name. But you can add in different other alerts as well, so keywords, for example. And you can choose to get those alerts. They let you either have it daily or weekly, but not monthly or anything. But you can get it a digest form, so you just get one email, so like once a week. So if anything comes up about your name, a company, your colleagues, who you work for, whatever it is, you can actually get those alerts. So Hootsuite is basically, you can just use that one platform and have all of your social media accounts, or most of them, on that one platform, this is what it looks like. So it kind of is a little bit crazy when you're first starting off with it, and my holiday project is to get more to grips with Hootsuite. But this person that's their Facebook page showing, or account showing. They've also got Flickr, they've got Google+, Twitter, 2 WordPress blogs, YouTube, and a whole lot of other things as well. So you can post from this, and you can also schedule posts, time them for when you want them to send out. So you can just go to the one thing rather than going onto all those individual accounts. So that's another way of saving time. So I think that stats, what was it, 10 million? So it's not a lot that are using it, but for people with multiple accounts, once you've got to grips, it can be quite handy. And if you're into sort of like stats, then they actually have really good analytics as well. So you can actually analyse and do spreadsheets. And if you're a nerd, have fun, like me.
So before you sort of go onto these sort of platforms, people don't often think like, what is the purpose? They think, oh, everyone, like for me, I know I got onto Facebook because everyone else did. I don't really have a purpose or a goal in mind, but it's sort of good, because there's so many out there to think about, what is your objective? What is your purpose for going onto these platforms? And, how often in reality are you going to use it? So considering up front before you join these things wildly and end up with about 10 of these platforms that you're never going to use, what are you going to use it for, and how often in reality will you use it? And also, is it going to actually meet your objective? So talking to people, finding out, doing a bit of research, will this platform actually work for you and what you're trying to achieve, those sorts of things. Does anyone have a media plan? Yep. Oh, 2 people. Excellent, cool. Yep, and also just deciding also who do you want to talk to as well. Who's going to be your audience that you want to reach out to.
And that whole mixing personal and professional. So do you want them tangled up, or do you want to keep them very separate? Okay, so we've talked a bit about branding, personal branding, and when it comes to social media, what we're trying to do is protect our brand.
So everything that you put out there is going to be seen, and it actually says stuff about you without you knowing. It's like when you first go for that job interview, the first thing people are going to see is you and what you're wearing, and that's the same with a bit like social media, how you're going to come across. Everything you say, every single photo, that's going to speak volumes about who you are and your personal brand, which is why you need to be really careful about protecting it. And so things like, images, colours, what you say, slagging off your previous employer, as you all know, hopefully is not a good look, and that's not going to do your personal brand any good, especially if your boss is also your friend on Facebook and you forgot, for example, which has happened. Defriend that person. So so everything, you've got to think of yourself as a brand. Like from now on, you are a brand. Everything you say, do, wear, put out on social media, your CV, covering letter, all that sort of stuff. That's going to speak volumes about who you are as a brand, because you're going to be out there on public display. Yeah.
I like this quote. I think that sums it up really well. Basically, in terms of your profiles, you want to showcase your talent, sort of your values, your strengths, what you're good at. So all of those factors there basically make up your brand. Your personal brand when it comes to work will be a bit different from your personal brand when it comes to friends and family. But even with them, you do have an image that they've formed of you based on some of these things and other things as well. So from a work point of view, you're actually trying to showcase all of these things.
And you can especially do this on LinkedIn as well. They make it quite easy for you to upload the CV and show you off your skills and things like that.
In terms of employers, they do actually screen job applicants. Once again, stats are a little bit, but it gives you a really good idea. So 76%, they'll go onto Facebook. 53% Twitter, 48% LinkedIn. I think that's much higher now. So they do check you out. In terms of the hiring process, in which phase, it's after receiving an application would be 47%, 4% right before making an offer.
So they are checking you out.
Yeah. So like in terms of rejecting candidates, 11% posted inappropriate photos. So there's photos, inappropriate comments.
Lied
The
about the
highest
qualifications.
lied about their qualifications. But the flip side is it can work on your favour as well. So 39%, they gave a positive impression of their personality and organisational fit. So just briefly, tips for success. So it's not just having the profile, having a static profile and doing nothing about it. You need to join groups and engage in the conversation as well. I know, it's that time thing, isn't it?
Yep.
So that's why the plan comes into, so you need to think about where your time is best spent. Keeping your profile up to date, ask and answer questions, be strategic about who you accept onto your profile. So we talked a little bit about that. And then posting regularly. For different people, that will mean different things, like, multiple times a day, once a week. In terms of what you post about, think about what you're really interested in, what your passions are. And also, which ones do you have a good understanding of? That means that you'll be able to contribute something to the discussion. It doesn't mean you have to be an expert, but you can contribute to the discussion. And then think about what actually excites you, so you would want to post about it at 2 a.m. if you happen to be awake at that time. And then also think about how they complement your personal brand. So in the circles there, just sort of like social media, there's marketing, Auckland, food and wine, history, travel. They all interlink and overlap. So if you're trying to grow your networks, you'll try and sort of connect that social media community to the marketing community and combine them. So just a quick little thing about Twitter. So going back to those circles, so I've got social media there, marketing, Auckland. With Twitter, they say people will look at your profile and maybe make up their mind about 8 seconds whether or not to connect with you. So 8 seconds isn't a lot of time. So unlike some of the others, you don't have space to put in a lot of information. So what you put in the bio is really important. So that person there, Beth Hart, has got marketing, PR, social media consultant, adjunct professor, history addict, avid reader, art culture buff, fan of beer, cowgirl boots and brilliance. So you get a really good snapshot in a very short space of time of what she's about. Then the other one, we were trying to figure this one out, weren't we, Di? Mm-hmm. Pack members of Alyssa Faraday were a couple of dogs sniffing out new friends, dogs, cats, humans. We love everyone and want to play frisbee.
Yeah, we didn't get it either. We're like, what?
Yeah, so you get a request to connect with that person, delete. So your bio for Twitter needs to be really, really, really clear. So Twitter is useful for connecting, a lot of people say it's useful for connecting with thought leaders, whatever that means. It's actually really helpful for getting information. So I've got a friend who's a writer, so she just posted something in Twitter. She basically asked if anyone knew about what happens when someone stabs you in the neck. Yeah, absolutely. And then I think it was a senior trauma surgeon from one of the top American hospitals actually almost instantly responded and said, yes, I can answer that question. And then they went offline and had a chat. But before she actually she did actually check her out to make sure that she was who she said she was, and she found a photo and everything else. But you can just send a random question on Twitter and you'll be amazed who actually will give you the answer. So it's a great source of information.
Well, you can use hashtags too.
Yes, so the trick is hashtags so that you're narrowing it down. Yeah. Pinterest and Instagram, that's not a common one that we think of when it comes to our career. But If you think about, once again, going back and think about your goal, think about who your target audience is. If it's American women, for example, Pinterest. If it's apparently English men. So you think about your users and think about where they are. If your users were sort of, teens, you'd be on Snapchat. So you do need to think about where the people you want to connect with are. Google Plus, predominantly men. So it's things like that. So think about the users, think about their age groups as well. And then in terms of what to post, there's photos. So events, so we could have taken a photo of this, stick it on Instagram, office space even, quotes of people who inspire you, reading lists of books. So there are things that you can actually do on these as well that will help your career. It'll help your personal brand. Okay. So what you can do with Facebook is, by the way, if you don't know, if you want to see what the public see, if you go onto your profile and where it says view activity log and you've got the 3 dots, if you click on that and then do view as, you'll actually see what the public see. But if you want them to, you can actually fill out the About Me page. So you could fill out the work and education if you wanted, for example. So you can use it to give them an indication of you, the sort of person you are, from a careers perspective. Places you've lived, family relationships, you might want to skip that one, details about you. So you can fill out that section and then it can be public. So you get a choice of whether it's visible to the public, friends, or only me. I don't know why you'd do that, but. The other alternative is to forget about all of that and have a public page, so a fan page. So the difference is if it's friends, that's your private profile. But if you're liking a page, it's a public page, it's a fan page. So on the left-hand column of your profile, there's actually a section in caps that says pages, and under that it says create a page. You've got like pages, create a page. If you click on create a page, it'll bring you to a page that looks a lot like that with local business, artist, band or public figure. You could actually say be a business person, a blogger, an author, a chef. There's a great big long list. So you could have your own fan page and then you could put whatever you like on there. LinkedIn, this is all obvious stuff. So professional photos, recommendations, but I find a lot of people skip that step in terms of getting recommendations from colleagues and employers. Connecting with a few people with a large LinkedIn network means you actually have access to a really big network because you have access to their connections. So that's being strategic. Joining several groups in your career field as well, contribute to discussions.
Yep, because when you're contributing, because people often say to us, how can I stand out on LinkedIn? And one way to do that is actually contribute to those group postings. So join a group, but make sure that you are active and actually comment on things. And if you find an interesting article, then post it. It can be just putting the link in and say, look, I just found an interesting article about careers in our case. So that's always a good thing to keep active and just post things. That's how people can stand apart rather than just joining everything.
You could also have your own website. So on the website, you can have everything connecting to the website. You can have a copy of your CV. You can have examples of your work. So that's really powerful as well. So just general principles, Google Alert, so that you can track and see what people are doing. That's what it looks like when you actually set up the alert. You can write in the bar there what you want to create the alert about. It automatically came up with my name. Think about the fact that what you post actually leaves a permanent record. So think about, sort of in 20 years' time, your family might see what you put. So yes, you need to know who owns your social media. I wanted to emphasise that. And you can link it. So business cards, for example, you can link everything to each other. And that's the end of the presentation.